Hey guys, this is Mike with Coffee Cup Christianity. I am so glad you are here. We are, of course, getting jacked for Jesus as usual. Just want to say we are continuing our series, Tough Questions. Today's question is, does God know the future? And so it's kind of a tie-in to the last couple weeks we've been talking about is that concept of free will and does God know, like what's going on. And so the question is, well, if he, does he know the future? Because if he knows the future, then like, why would he create people who do bad things, who use that free will for bad? So if you haven't seen the other two videos on free will and suffering and stuff like that, watch those and then come right back to this one and we'll get right into it. So all that freedom that God gave us and took a risk on us by giving us brings us to a really good question. If God is all-knowing, why couldn't he have just looked ahead in the future, seen who was going to not do good, and then just not create them? Kind of seems like God really didn't need to take any risks at all. That's the question we're going to answer today. So in the generally accepted Christian view, right, like the theological view, is that God knows everything that there is to know, period. I think what is important to kind of think about is that we create the reality of our decisions by making our decisions. That reality doesn't exist until we've made those decisions. So to put it another way that might be a little bit easier, God does know what we're going to do, but because we decided to do it. See, God's knowledge of future actions is based on those people's future decisions, not the other way around. There's kind of a much simpler way to explain this. It goes like this. God knows all of reality, everything there is to know, but not until that reality exists. So the generally accepted theological view is the first half of that. God knows everything there is to know, all of reality. That's the generally accepted theological view. But there's a newer view, and I think it explains it better. And again, it just simply adds that last phrase, until that reality exists. And what that means is that God does know what we're going to do when we know what we're going to do. For example, I may decide to take a drink of my drink. Okay, so did God know I was going to take a drink? God knew I was going to take a drink when I decided that I was going to take a drink. Okay, so he knew before I took the drink that I took the drink. But the question is, did he know that I was going to then come up with the idea to take a drink? And I know it's tough. I know that's like crazy, right? So God does know the future. He knew that I was going to take a drink because that's what I decided I was going to do before I even said it. So God can't foreknow the decisions of people until he's created those people who then make decisions. So he can't weed out the bad people because he has to create all the people. And then when they decide to do something, then he knows, oh no, they're going to do that. All right, so I'm going to use my notes for this one because it's a tongue twister and it's a mouthful. So we're not saying that God doesn't know anything about the future, but that he doesn't eternally know the free decisions people will make in the future. Rather, he does know the future as already determined to be either by present circumstances or by his own design. Whew. Okay, so, right, mind blown, right? Basically what that's saying is, if God planned it, he knows the future. That's by his own design or by present circumstances. I have decided to take a drink of this. Even though I haven't taken the drink yet, God knows Mike has decided to take that drink, so I know he's going to take that drink, okay? But if I don't exist yet, right, I haven't, that decision doesn't exist. And if that decision to take the drink doesn't exist, then God wouldn't know that decision will exist, and therefore that I will take the drink. So I know, right, mind-blowing. But it's a much simpler way to understand it than just to say either God knows all the future and he's just like terrible, or he doesn't know any of the future and we've been lied to, right? So I mean that's kind of the thing. I think this is a much easier way to understand it. And there's actually plenty of biblical support for this theory, okay? Many times in the Bible, God is speaking to someone, questioning someone, and actually changes his mind sometimes based on a change in circumstances. Lots of times, we'll take, King David, for example. King David and the story of David and Bathsheba, where he kills her husband because she's hot, and he's like, oh man, she's hot, I'm gonna kill her husband. And then she gets pregnant, and his prophet Nathan, his best friend Nathan, comes over, and Nathan explains to him, dude, God is mad. And then David's like, oh no, well then the baby dies or gets sick or something. I don't know. You should read your Bible and find out. But David then asks for forgiveness, and God basically changes the whole trajectory of David's life at that point. Right? God is okay, I forgive you. Now we're going to change things up. There are dozens of stories in the Bible like that. Dozens. I mean, we talked about Samson a few weeks ago, right? Samson, God, he kind of didn't follow God, and God was like, okay, well, you're not super strong anymore. And then at the very end, Samson's like, God, I need you. And God's like, okay, super strength, right? There are tons of examples in the Bible about God changing his mind. The question then would be, well, would he have changed his mind if he already knew the future? And I think the answer is no, he would have planned something differently. And so I think that the Bible actually supports this theory that God does know all future reality if that reality already exists. If the existence of that reality is not there yet, then of course God wouldn't know it yet. Bottom line takeaway, if you are scratching your head, or if you, I don't know, hope you made it to the end of this video. If you did make it to the end of this video and you're scratching your head and you're like, man, I literally have no idea what words you just said for 7 minutes or 6 minutes, however long I've been talking. Bottom line takeaway, if it either exists in action or thought, God knows it. But only if it exists in either action or thought. Just like we said, right? God knew that I was going to do that. Okay? Now, if I say I'm going to take a drink, but I'm not really going to take a drink, see, God knows that I've decided not to take a drink because I've decided that. And so that's the takeaway. Bottom line is, look, if it exists either by action or thought, God knows it. And I think that's the simplest way to understand it. But next time in our series, Tough Questions, we're going to be tackling the question, what about a pandemic or natural disasters or those things that are kind of outside free will? So that's going to be a good one, because I know a lot of people right now are kind of like, hey man, this a virus and things like that can't be God, right? Nobody's free will lend itself to that or created that. So I think that's going to be a good one. So stay with me next time. And again, remember, get jacked, and we'll see you next time.